Hey friends, it's Gina. Welcome to the Rebookery channel. This is just going to be a short video to show you a couple of books that I use quite a bit when I'm journaling and I've had some questions about. And then I want to share with you something new and kind of wild and crazy that I've got going on. These books I have found at thrift stores, like a set of encyclopedias, and they're called Childcraft, and they have different years. So this one is like 1954, and then this one right here is probably 60s or 70s, just because I can tell from the paper. Oh, 1964. So they have different, like there's different volumes. So this is the poems of early childhood. So this is one of the ones where they're really thick paper and really beautiful illustrations, and I love pulling poems and illustrations from this book. This particular book I have not pulled anything from. This is all intact. I'm pulling everything from a book that was just like this, but it was falling apart. And since this one's not falling apart, I just look at this for inspiration. This one is from 1960, whatever I said, 1964. And I have pulled some pictures and some poems from this one. And the poems are the same, so every time I find one of these volumes of these Childcraft poetry books, the poems are the same. It's just that the illustrations have changed and the type of paper that it comes on has changed. To show you another type of Childcraft, this is a Childcraft folk and fairy tales, and it's the same thing. It's got beautiful illustrations and lots of stories, and there are different years that this was published. So there's different covers. I don't know how many different years they published these. I've seen them as complete sets. I've seen them just by themselves. So if you're lucky enough to find one of these cool things, snatch it up. And even if you don't cut it up to use it, it's just awesome to go through and read and look at the illustration. Okay, so a few videos ago, I felt like I was kind of all over the place with my journals. So I came up with this plan, and you'll remember this from a video, and I'll link it below. So then I got really excited about a cookbook that I was turning into a journal. If you remember, it was this book right here. And I had told you that this was a cookbook that was kind of special to me because I had found it at an estate sale. This was a cookbook, the first cookbook that my grandmother had bought. And then my mom, it was her favorite cookbook. And I was ready to use it. Once I put some stuff in these other journals, I was ready to get going on this. But something just was stopping me from using this book, and I love it. I love everything about it. I love the size of it. I love just, oh my gosh, it's awesome. I love it. It's juicy. It's just full of all kinds of cool, juicy journaling bits. But I just couldn't get started in it for whatever reason. So I went out in my garage where I keep some of my books that I don't quite know what I want to do with. And I had this book that I bought at an estate sale last spring. When I first saw this book, I almost didn't buy it. It was just way too large and way too cumbersome, and I didn't think that if I made it and put it in my Etsy shop, it would sell. I didn't think the size would appeal to everybody. So I almost didn't buy it, but ultimately I did, and it's been sitting in my garage waiting for a purpose. To kind of give you an idea of how big this book really is, so this is the text block that I removed from this book. This is how big this is. This is 4 inches. I've never even seen a book this big. And it's a cookbook called The Encyclopedia of Cooking. It's pretty old. The pages are okay. They're not really brittle, like I can fold them and they don't fall apart. I don't know how journaling in a fat book like this would work. I've never done a journal this fat. So I thought, what the heck? I'm just gonna make it and I'm gonna use it myself. So, are you ready? Dun dun dun. There it is. This is my Encyclopedia of Cooking journal. It's my personal journal. It is huge. I affectionately call it my little journal. When I'm around the house, I'll be like, hey, has anybody seen my little journal? This was the most fun to make, probably because I knew that it was just going to me. What I did on the inside is what makes this really special. So I've got lots of paper, and I'll do a flip through of the papers in my process video that I'm going to show you guys. But what I wanted to do on the insides, because this cover was totally, it was awful. It was in bad shape. The whole spine was ripping apart because that text block was just too heavy for the cover. And so over the years, the spine had pulled apart. So the text block was very easy to remove. But I knew I needed something substantial. So I found this fabric a couple weeks ago, and I fell in love with it because it's seriously 1970s fabric. And I swear one of my grandparents had this fabric, either a pillow or a chair. I can't remember what it was, but one of them had this fabric. So I snatched up, there was just a little remnant, and I snatched that up. And then that became the inside cover. So I just added some fabric scraps, some trim, some lace, some velvet. This is a pocket that I made out of an iron-on patch, and I thought that was kind of cute, still probably from that same time era, the 1970s, which is when I was a little kid. And then in the back, I have the same fabric, and then I have some trim and some lace. Then I also had these scraps of fabric that were cut just like this. I sewed these guys in, and they became little pockets. So I have little pockets. It's just totally eclectic and totally crazy, and I'm all right with that. I love, 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 love how it turned out. The spine I reinforced with some more book board, but then I added some handmade paper, this handmade paper right here. And then I added some more trim that had been gifted to me that I just love, love, love. Then the cover was really pretty because it had such a beautiful illustration. Again, hearkening back to the 1970s. So I didn't want to cover it up. So I just took some ink and I just put some splotches, and then I sealed it. So I am so excited to use this journal. I've already started a couple of pages. This journal is going to be kind of a catch-all. I'm going to put some scrapbooking in it. I'm going to do some journaling and some writing in it. But I'm going to also still use my garden journal, absolutely. Still use my handyman's journal. Still use my occasional journal, the altered book, and of course I'll use my traveler's notebook as my planner. I thought it would also be a good test for me to see what it's like to journal in something as big and bulky as this. I don't know, we'll see. And ultimately I think this will help me to make better journals for my Etsy shop. After I've journaled in something this large, I can kind of figure out how the paper works and the binding, and then I'll also, you know, give you guys some feedback and let you know what works, what's hard, what's kind of cumbersome. So anyway, yeah, so this is my little journal, and here's my process.